So yeah, the last video I mentioned something about the whole situation with the life and death of Jesus Christ. And I wanted to clarify what I was talking about there, because I mentioned that the crucifixion of Christ is meaningful to everybody who gives any credence to Jesus Christ. So I think what most religion or most Christians or Protestants or even Catholics believe is that the whole idea of Jesus' birth, life, and death and resurrection was to save people from their sins, okay? And that, I think that there may be some validity to that, but maybe not in the way that people typically think of it. Because the actual crucifixion of Christ was an ultimate display of experiencing shame. Now, obviously, when somebody goes to death, is experiencing death, or has the feeling that they're going to die, there can be a lot of fear with that. But if you're, for example, if you're in a car and you're on the verge of having a car accident, you may be in a situation where you all of a sudden feel this impending death coming upon you. There have been a couple of times in my life where I actually thought that I was actually sure that I was going to die. And in those just couple of seconds before impact, when I thought that death was going to happen, I had this extreme clarity and an extreme peace came over me. But that's nothing like what happened with Jesus when he was going to the cross. Now, maybe in the final moments, like the last few seconds, that is what he experienced, but I'm talking about the hours that led up to the actual death experience that he had. He actually submitted himself to the greatest shame that any human on the planet could experience. And that was hours of being derided, spit upon, stripped naked, ridiculed, basically punished, so tortured. But as we see it, like even from the time that we're babies until even adults, we don't necessarily as adults think of it as punishment, but when things happen to us, a lot of times we internalize that as a type of punishment, like we're not worthy. Something has happened to us because we're not good enough. And all of this was compounded by the fact that it was an actual crucifixion, that what he was experiencing was the Romans treating him like the worst criminal that the Romans had. The crucifixion was basically used for those who deserve the ultimate punishment. And so Jesus was punished as if he were a worthless human being, worse than worthless, a criminal, a monster. And that is how he was treated. And I think what a lot of people fail to recognize is that entire play of events where he was treated with the utmost disrespect, the utmost callousness, and took it with grace, is what he expects of those who follow him. And it's not something that a person can do on their in their ego egotistical self. So what does this mean for us? Well, a lot of times you'll hear people talk about how, oh, that person doesn't respect me, or they're treating me with disrespect. Well, guess what? When you're being spat upon and stripped naked and whipped, that is the ultimate in disrespect of your humanity, of your personhood. Basically, they were treating Jesus as if he was not worth any respect whatsoever, and yet he took it with grace. He did not lash out. He didn't fight back. He didn't even contest anything that was being done to him. And yet, people who believe in him have a difficult time acting with that type of humility. That type of humility is so rare, and it's impossible to have that kind of humility when your ego is getting in the way all the time, when you feel like you deserve this or you deserve that, and it also is associated with your insecurities. There's this philosophy among us, and we can thank Christmas partially for that with Santa Clauses. Are you naughty or nice? Are you on the nice list or the naughty list? Nice and naughty doesn't have anything to do with the message that Jesus was bringing to humanity. Basically, he was saying that is not the issue here. You, by being polarized as naughty or nice, either polarizing yourself by looking at yourself and thinking of yourself as naughty or nice, or thinking of others as naughty or nice, you're basically defeating the entire message that Jesus was trying to bring to the planet, which is that that's not the point. The point is that you're human, that things that you do, the meaning of naughty or nice that's put to it, or good or bad or whatever, that's a human construct. And the things that happen to you in life may or may not have anything to do with, they may not be events that have anything to do with something that you did that caused it, or something that somebody else did that caused it. And oftentimes we put labels on things, and we try to create this cause and effect scenario that justifies why something happened to somebody. Yet, if you look in the wild, you can see that it's very common for example, a lion to chase down its prey, and who does it attack first? It attacks the weak, and often the young of the herd. The ones that, if we were humans, we would say, that's atrocious, that's unjust. And yet, this is an animal going and trying to just eat for the day, and it gets what it gets because it's easier, convenient, more readily available. And of course, somebody would say maybe, well, that lion should be going after the oldest of the herd, or the big and strong ones that are, that have a fighting chance. But that doesn't make sense. And that's the whole point, is that it isn't about what is just or unjust, or right or wrong, or moral or immoral. It's that things happen in the world, things happen in life that may have no cause and effect. It may have, that we, or at least not the cause and effect that we label it with. It may have nothing to do with morality or immorality, or good or bad, or evil, or whatever. But we as humans have put all these labels on these things, and we use it as a justification for continually criticizing those that we disagree with. And and calling out things that are maybe what we consider unjust, but yet what makes us more just than the other person? What is that? So I guess the whole thing that I'm coming to here is the crucifixion of Christ, I think, is very powerful in its representation of shame, of a human meeting the ultimate in shame and having to endure that, not just for a few moments, but for hours, right up until death, being stripped naked, ridiculed, nailed to a cross. And in crucifixion, a lot of times the genitalia would get pierced as well, or in some ways mutilated. It doesn't say anything in our records that that's what happened to Christ, but you can imagine being stripped naked and being put through that torture, that there is all types of humiliation that a person would experience in that scenario that most humans have no clue about. I mean, beyond the pain itself, the feeling internally of punishment, the feeling of being worse than the lowest person on the planet, that you're no good, that you have no value whatsoever, and that you're actually a monster, that you're being treated this way, that you're the worst person on the planet, and that's why you're being treated this way. That's an automatic response, human response to being punished like that. And some people resist it, and they try to laugh it off, or fight back, or get angry, but it's due to this internal feeling. I mean, I guess all feelings are internal, but this feeling deep within that society is judging us and has condemned us, and therefore we are worthless, or I am worthless because of that. And that's hard to take. I mean, you think about any kind of argument you have with a person, and when somebody slights you or says something that makes you feel rejected, and that's a very minute amount of humiliation. It's a feeling of unworthiness that you experience in that moment. But the feeling of unworthiness in that moment was compounded hundreds of times for the person of Jesus Christ as he was going to the cross. And I think that that's the real message that is so important, is that we get so wrapped up in ourselves that we don't even think about this this shame that we have, and really look at it and experience it, allow ourselves to feel it so that we can feel through it and become something other than that shame, and allow ourselves to release that shame, the feeling ashamed for not getting that job, feeling like we weren't worthy because somebody else said something about us that was unkind. And maybe they said it behind our back and we heard it through the grapevine or something. And then it stings, it hurts, it feels like ego death, like punishment almost. And we humans have such a hard time with this because we just, on a regular basis, we just don't feel worthy. We don't feel worthy. I mean, we can put on the mask of we're so great and we're, yes, we're fully worthy. And, people who go after money, usually people who are super successful, whether it's in sports and finances, in corporate life, whatever, a lot of times that is constantly striving to gain that feeling of worthiness that the person doesn't feel. And they think that getting to the next notch, getting the next, by leveling up, that they'll finally feel that worthiness that is missing from their lives. But that's not the secret to joy. That's not the secret to getting worthiness. The real way to get it is to fully experience it. That's what Jesus did. He fully experienced shame. He fully experienced unworthiness. And he was, if you assume he was the Son of God, he was the most worthy person on the planet. And yet he was derided and treated and crucified as if he was the most unworthy person on the planet. Now, I don't expect anybody to get crucified in order to experience that, but subjecting yourself to imaginations of the shame that you've had in your life, times when you felt punished, like you weren't worth anything, just going back to memories of that, or imagining situations where you have felt that, or you would feel that, and allowing yourself to feel unworthiness, feel the shame, and just notice those sensations in the body. Focus on the sensations, not the label. Focus on the sensations of the unworthiness, the energy in the body and how it manifests itself, and just allow it to be, without criticism, without trying to block it out, without trying to shy away from it. Just allow it to be. And notice as it dissipates. And the more you do this, if you practice this on a regular basis, just sit, close your eyes, and imagine yourself as unworthy, where you felt unworthy, specific scenarios where you feel that unworthiness, and then allow those sensations to come up in the body and just let them go. Breathe into them. And just release. And then sensations may not go away completely. They may not go away. It may take several minutes for you to feel any relief at all. And you may still feel residuals of it, but just continue to practice that. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with the sensations of unworthiness, so that the unworthiness becomes something that you're more comfortable with, instead of trying to move away or reject it or shy away or block it out. Because doing that actually prevents you from healing the unworthiness and moving forward in who you really are, in your authentic self, so that you can allow yourself to be fully authentic with others. And that, my friend, is where happiness lies.